Okay, so this one is this is iPhone Simon today.
This is iPhone.
You see, he cocked up the camera and everything. It's recording
Yeah,
from space.
I know.
Like,
I'm on the road.
yeah,
I've got things set up in the next room here to record.
yeah,
And I didn't want to. I'm just lazy. I mean, you know this about me.
I got
You
it.
know I'm a lazy SOB. So I was like, should I break things down to do this, or should I just be lazy and use my phone?
Become iPhone Simon. It's what it happened.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
yes,
transformed
you did
iPhone Simon.
transform. It's a different look
Yep.
here,
Yeah.
but you're always
This
giving a
is
different look.
yeah. This is me in LA.
It is
I'm
Simon
probably
in
I'm,
LA.
I'm probably a little sunburned, but you know.
It's that white skin of yours. Like,
It's mostly red now, I think. But
wow.
yeah.
Unbelievable, man. I love it, man.
So we're here to talk about Arnold.
Yes, you're gonna do more impressions like you did with Sly. By the way, I watched another Rambo
I haven't
movie.
been practicing anything. Oh, which one? Which
I
one are we
watched the
watching?
last one, the final
Okay.
Rambo. Pretty gruesome,
And
man.
yeah.
Pretty gruesome. But
Uh,
the writing was good actually on some level.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I always expect that um yeah, like you just said, on some level,
On some level.
the writing is going to be good in most Stallone movies that he actually kind of writes and stuff.
Yeah, that's
I'm
right.
assuming that he
He
at
does.
least co-wrote or wrote that. He seems like a decent writer. He definitely knows how to write, a good uh inspirational speech in a sports movie.
Yeah, that's right.
His Rocky speeches are always on point. You know,
He's playing a superhero coming up
I think I saw that.
called
I,
Samaritan.
yeah, you know, I'll reserve judgment. That's what I'm
I
gonna
know
do.
you
I'm
will.
gonna reserve judgment, and I'm gonna just let him do his thing.
Yeah.
Um,
You know what? I think about
yeah.
you every time I watch movies now. It's weird. I'm like, was Simon like this? Would he like
Yeah,
this?
I was gonna say it's not in a good way. It's in a judgy way,
It's
isn't it?
more of
It's
a
like how,
skepticism. Like,
yeah, how harshly would Simon judge this film?
yeah. Like I tried to watch The Gray Man on Netflix and
Uh,
it
yeah.
sucked bad.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Simon the CGI was so bad, man. It's
I don't understand
so
that.
bad.
Like, I feel like we're in an age. I mean, I guess there's just. I wonder, budgetary wise, how much more it costs to do CGI versus practical.
Right. And this was Netflix's highest expense of a movie, 200 million.
Wow.
200 million for
And
terrible CG.
the CGI was still bad.
It was bad. It was kind of like very noticeable, like when we reviewed the what was the one with the Nile? um
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Death on the Nile.
Death on the Nile. It was noticeable like that, but
Yeah.
worse. But
Oh
worse.
man, that's terrible.
It's actually
Because some
bad
of that
movie.
Death on the Nile stuff was, I mean,
It was obvious.
yeah, it was almost amateur green screen. It's like I've seen YouTube, people who've done green screen backdrops
Right.
that have looked more convincing.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
So much of that is a lighting issue, matching the lighting of the background with,
Yeah.
and I've watched a lot of these VFX artists. You know those videos where they react.
Yeah.
So, and I just find that stuff really interesting. A lot of that corresponds to things that I do with music production and stuff like
Yeah.
that, because you're always trying to match the mood. Okay, you want the sound of the drums to evoke this, the emotion of the song and things like
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
so a lot of these concepts cross pollinate, and so I just find it really interesting to hear these guys who are talking about good and bad VFX. And so much of what they talk about is like, you can get away with a lot if you can just get the lighting right.
I see. I
And
see.
so, and I believe it. It's like, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense because, I mean, what is photography? What is film except
Right.
capturing light?
Yeah.
And so when you do something digitally that's not the light that you originally shot, then yeah, it just stands out so much when you can't match that light,
Yeah. Well, you
And
would think
so
like somebody that spent 200 million that it would be like the best CGI. Like it would be
yeah,
like
I mean that's
almost
Marvel money.
indistinguishable, you know?
Yeah.
It's
And
pretty
and for me,
bad.
I think that's too much reliance on CGI.
Yes. Yes.
Because if you're spending that much money and the CGI still isn't good,
Yeah.
then you are relying too much on CGI and you needed to do more practical and just use CGI to enhance the practical.
Yeah.
I don't know the movie. I don't even know what it's about or anything like
Skip
that.
it.
But
Just skip it. I'm telling
yeah,
you.
but I'm just saying, like, I guarantee there was probably a lot that they could have done practical that they
Yeah.
decided to use CGI for.
Yeah. I mean, I was watching it and then it got to a certain point and I was like, man, this is like totally unbelievable. Like, this is
Yeah.
like, there's no, at no point is any of this believable. Like, I was like, I can't be a
are
part
you
of this.
are
Yeah.
you talking about from a story concept or
Everything. Yes. I was like,
everything? So
man, and then the action was not believable. It's just
yeah,
like, it's different if there's a superhero or something and I know it's not going to happen, but I'm like, this seems like you're trying to tell me this could happen. I'm like,
yeah,
it's not
I
good.
feel like there's so many movies that or filmmakers and things like that, they watch the Born Identity,
Yeah.
those movies,
Yeah.
and they're like, I want to do that, but I want to take it up a notch.
Yeah.
And the problem with taking it up a notch is that you didn't have to. The Born Identity
No.
action sequences are already kind of at the highest notch for the
Yeah.
most part. You know what I
Right.
mean? And they work so well because most of it's practical.
Yeah.
And once again, they enhance. I was actually surprised. I watched kind of a behind the scenes thing on this was another one of those VFX reacts, I think. And the stuntman who he like jumps from the roof of one building into a window in
Yeah.
one of the movies and then has a fight sequence directly following that. But they really do the jump, right? And there's a real person jumping from a real building through a real window, but they CGI the glass.
Right.
And I was really impressed because I didn't catch that the glass was CGI.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's because it happens so quickly and everything else is real. And so you
Yeah.
can get away with that, and you're never and as a film viewer, you don't doubt what just happened even for a
Right.
moment.
Right.
It's when they do something that then you get somebody, I'm assuming the filmmakers of the movie you watched decided, let's do something like that, but let's
Yeah.
take it up another notch. And now I have to CGI the person because a person can't do what I want them to do,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Or they don't want to, like, I don't know, sometimes that confuses me because so many of the CGI stunt work that I see, it's no more impressive than a lot of this real practical
Yeah.
stunt work
That's
that I've
right.
seen. So I'm like, why didn't you just get a real person to do that? There are stuntmen who will take that fall, and
Yes.
they are that's their whole life
That's
is,
right.
please hire me to come and take that fall.
I will take that fall.
You don't need to CGI a fake person.
Yeah.
I will do it. you know.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is like when the movie opens up, we're gonna get to Total Recall, but it's like you can tell they try to de-age the characters. It's like Ryan
Oh man.
Gosling and Billy Bob Thornton. Ryan Gosling, I'm like, I'm not sure why they did that. He's still a young guy, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But like Billy Bob Thornton, it was so over the top aging.
Ugh.
I was like,
Yeah.
he just looks like a lizard to me. I was like, just like like a smooth skin lizard or something. It
Way
was
too
like
much
weird.
smoothing.
Way too much smoothing,
Billy Bob Thornton, he's never looked that young.
No. So
You know what I
why
mean?
should
Even
he
when he
look
was
young?
young, he didn't look young.
Right. He always looked like he was smoking a pack every day, It's like
Yeah.
he's just
Go watch Billy Bob Thornton 20 years ago. He doesn't look very young.
no, he
you
doesn't.
know?
No, no. I'm like, why are they doing this? Like and
Oh.
it kind of persisted throughout the movie, this de-aging kind of thing. And I mean, I
Man,
didn't get more than like 40 minutes. I was like, I got to be done with this. It's hard for me
yeah.
to shut off a movie. Like I usually will just give it a shot, you know?
Once again, so much of that can be done with practical effects, and once again
Yeah.
enhanced with some CGI. They did de-aging effects on Kurt Russell in one of those Marvel movies,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I thought it looked really good.
Right.
But come to find out that most of it was done with makeup.
Oh, really?
The makeup artist said, "Hey, I want to try this thing that will yeah," and they said, "Yeah, do that," and then they did a little bit of enhancing to what was already done practically. And once again, it's like that's the whole secret, right?
Yeah.
Instead of going full in CGI, use as much practical as you can and then enhance that with
Yeah.
some CGI. And
Right.
that's when CGI is really at its best, you
I
know?
agree. I totally agree. Which is funny about Total Recall. And it came out during a time when you could say maybe they were really trying to move in that direction, you know? But like,
Yeah,
I love the effects in that movie. Like, I think they're hilarious. Some of
totally.
it's dumb, but like just the holographic stuff they have in there. And
Yeah,
you know, when he takes the lady's head off type of thing, you know, it's like,
yeah.
wow, you can tell it's not real, but it's like it kind of fits the movie, you know?
And I don't know if a lot of stuff that you see today, to your point of what you just brought up, movie you just brought up, a lot of the effects we see today aren't that much better.
No,
You
no,
know?
there's no big leap, you know?
Yeah, and once again, so much of uh Total Recall, even though, like you said, they were really trying to push the
Yeah.
effects envelope in a lot of these movies, they still had to rely on so many practical effects
Yeah.
and things like that.
Yeah.
And so it just, but that movie has a very distinct look to it. If I'm not mistaken,
Yes.
it's the same guy who did the RoboCop movies.
Yeah. Yeah. His has a similar feel to it, you know?
Yeah, and it's kind of funny that Detroit and Mars have a similar feel under that
You've been to
director. You know what I
Detroit, you've been
mean?
to
It's
Mars.
like, yeah,
What a
it's like,
hellhole.
yeah,
Sorry, Detroit.
yeah.
Sorry.
So, but yeah, I mean, I once again, I don't like to be caught up in false nostalgia, but I do think movies like that, even when they don't look real per se, I
Yeah.
still think a lot of the effects look better than a lot of the effects we see
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
Like when they're uh in the atmosphere of Mars and their
Yeah.
faces get all distorted and
Right.
their
Yeah.
eyes are gonna pop out and
Bulging,
stuff like
bulging
that.
out. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it looks weird and crazy, but I think it looks just as convincing as most VFX that you'd see
Right.
today depicting a similar
Yeah.
situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's something about those scenes that kind of makes me think of Tim Burton.
Ah, yes. Yeah.
The face, when the faces get all distorted and the eyes start to bug out, it makes me think of Tim Burton effects. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know who worked on the effects of that film, but yeah, it almost feels like a more serious take on some of the effects in Beetlejuice.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. Like it does. I never thought about it that way. It does have that. Because I think I
That
always
it,
focus also too, thinking back about the movie, like the concept of recall and going in there and living another life. And you could be a
yeah,
spy, you could be, whatever, is somewhat kind of like what people are trying to pursue with the metaverse and all this stuff. Come in and be like, have an avatar, be
yes,
someone else.
yeah,
Maybe you're not happy with your life, be someone else. It's kind of funny like how that has progressed.
yeah. I was thinking of that from the angle of actually the recall and also the hologram.
Yeah.
So there's a moment in the hologram which when I first watched the movie, I think it was my favorite moment in the whole movie,
Yeah.
where the guys turn around and see him. The guys who are trying to kill him turn around and see him, and Arnold's character laughs
Yeah.
and says, "You think it's me?"
Yeah.
And then they turn around, assuming it's the hologram, and he just guns them down and
Yeah.
says, "You're right." You know.
Yeah.
And, so, but what? All right, you're probably gonna laugh about this because I'm gonna take that to like, a deep level
Okay.
here, right? And say, the fake versions of ourselves seem a lot less threatening than the real versions of ourselves.
Mm.
So when we can create a fake version of ourselves, which we all do, whether you're
Yeah.
talking about a metaverse or whether you're talking about just person-to-person interaction, we
Yeah.
create a fictional version of ourselves that we feel is less threatening to other people.
Mm.
And then we create a version of ourselves that we feel will be more accepted and more appreciated
Yeah.
by other people. But we also want people to think maybe we're a little bit more exciting than we are.
Yeah.
Maybe we're a little bit more. So, just like the recall, oh, my life isn't so great, but maybe on my little virtual vacation, I'm a James Bond.
Yeah.
I'm a bit more exciting than my real life.
Right.
But in the movie, he's assuming it's in a non-threatening atmosphere,
Right.
Right. He's just assuming that he can do this and there will be no consequences,
Right.
and everything will be fine. So anyway, I was just thinking about that from that angle of our personal identities and the identity that we hide from the world, and we even maybe hide from ourselves.
Right.
And say, because I mean, there's so much escapism. Isn't that the point of recall?
Yes, escapism. Yeah.
And I feel like there is a part of each of us that wants to escape our own selves. That's the whole point of recall.
That's right.
And why? It's probably because we're somewhat disappointed in who we are. And maybe maybe we are in a way threatened by who we really are, because we're like, oh, I shouldn't be that. I should be something else.
Yeah.
All right, there's my take.
That was pretty deep, actually.
Take.
This is like an LA hot take. I mean, it's like, you know what? There's so much to talk about there. I didn't see that coming.
I knew it. When he suggested this movie and I started going down that road and thinking that way, I was thinking to myself, Darian's just gonna crack up at this, because he's just like, what? This is a freaking Arnold action vehicle. This is not a deep philosophical movie.
This is like multiverse Simon. I mean, I think it, but the more I think about this movie, it just like, when I watched it when it came out, of course, I had no feelings about this type of stuff. I was way young. But now, like, when I see it now, I love watching it. Anytime it's on, I watch it. I'm like, oh, this is great. I love Arnold movies,
Yeah.
But it's just kind of like the whole conflict between Quaid, and Mars. And then also kind of how like Mars is kind of what you think it would be. It became Earth. Classism, rich and the poor, the politics. It was like, oh, we screwed that up too.
Yeah.
And then, there may be oxygen. There's oxygen, but they don't want the planet to have oxygen. It's like, how dare you try to terraform Mars?
The hoarding of resources.
Yeah. And
because
becoming, that's what we do.
That's what gives us power. Who has the most resources.
Right.
Such an interesting concept. Actually, thinking about that makes me think of Spaceballs.
Love Spaceballs.
And the whole oxygen thing, the giant vacuum that's pulling out all the oxygen.
Yeah.
I think at one point, like the mayor or somebody like opens a can of pure oxygen. He's like drinking it like it's a drug or something.
Where's Prince Valium?
Such good air. Yeah. But isn't that just an interesting thing? Like when you I went back. So we had COVID in our house a couple of weeks back.
Yeah.
And so I just sat back and I didn't get the symptoms too bad, but I was kind of, I was feeling pretty down for like 2 days.
Yeah.
And so for 2 days, I watched a lot of movies.
Yeah.
And I saw that there's all these James Bond movies on, and I was watching movies that I didn't mind if I fell asleep during.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, okay. So I watched a James Bond movie from each era of Bond, and very entertaining, very entertaining. But the one I watched from the Daniel Craig version, I decided, I'm going to watch what everybody thinks is the worst one. And that was that Quantum of Solace one.
Yeah.
But once again, that movie's all based on hoarding resources. It's
right.
like, well, we're just going to take all the fresh water and then sell it back at a premium.
Right.
And I know that it's kind of funny because I think the problem that most people had with that plot is that it wasn't big enough.
Right.
It wasn't Bondy enough. It wasn't.
It wasn't big. Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't like we have a space shuttle that's capturing airplanes and some weird thing.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a great movie, but I'm saying that I was kind of refreshed when I was watching it and at how practical the Bond villain was in that one. It's like, instead of, I need to get these diamonds to power my laser or something stupid like that, it's no, we're just buying up fresh water because that's the greatest resource we have.
Right.
And in that sense, it's the same as air on Mars.
Yeah.
What are you going to do without air?
Right.
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do? You're going to be dead out there if we don't give you this. And I just never thought about it that way till I got older. I was like, wow, this, like, it makes you think that the time they're making this very entertaining movie and has like sci-fi and effects, but there's so many deep themes about kind of this existential reality and then hoarding of resources and then space travel. It's actually fairly complex if you think about it,
And I enjoy movies that you don't need a sequel.
Exactly.
We're caught up in, I think, a lot of Hollywood today is sequels and remakes, right?
And the movies are made based off of that. The endings are made based on, which I hate. I can't stand
exactly. We want either like a post-credit scene or something that leaves it open-ended so that, maybe there can be a part 2.
Yeah.
And that's the whole money-making thing, it's like, well, if people like this enough, we have to make a sequel.
And like, you don't have to, but like, it's a franchise now.
Yeah, everything's a franchise.
Everything's a franchise. What is that?
So so I really appreciate that. Arnold movies are one-offs.
They're one-offs. Yeah.
I think everybody really wanted Arnold to come back and reprise his role in like Predator movies and things like that. And I just think, like, am I wrong that the only Arnold movie that has a sequel is Conan?
Well, and then he was in Terminator a couple times.
Oh, the Terminator franchise. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, he's come back to.
The Terminator.
He's come back to
that one. He's come back to. That's his signature.
That's the signature for him.
Yeah.
But most of it is not. It's like a one-off. Most of it is not for him, which I like.
And I mean, take the Terminator movies as an ultimate example of why you shouldn't keep doing sequels.
Exactly.
It's like, I mean, Terminator 2 is a classic. I'm not ever gonna. I think it's one of the best action sci-fi movies ever made.
Agreed.
However, once you get past that, it's like none of these movies are either necessary or good.
I agree. It's the double whammy. Unnecessary and not good.
Yeah. And once again, like Conan the Destroyer, part 2, like they turned it into a comedy.
They did. It totally did.
And I was just like, man, this doesn't fit. If you watch Conan the Barbarian and then you watch Conan the Destroyer, you could literally change the name of Conan the Destroyer and just say his name was Bob, or something like that. And because it's a different character. It's a different character. It's a different story. They don't have much of anything alike. They're both swords and sorcery movies, but that's it, really. One
Right.
is almost a straight up action comedy, and the other one, I don't know if there's a single
Uh,
joke in the whole thing. Is Conan the
I
Barbarian have a single joke in the
no, it's
whole
very
movie? It's
serious,
very
actually.
serious.
Very
Yeah,
serious. And I love that, by the way. I love that movie so
exactly.
much, man. So good.
There's so many reasons why Conan the Barbarian is a classic movie,
Oh,
and
so good.
yeah, but
But then he did Commando. That was a one-off. It's
yeah,
like it's not like it was just boom, movie, one off.
exactly.
No
And
franchise.
I think a lot of that was that he wanted to work with different people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I think Total Recall got made is because he saw RoboCop and he's like, I want to
Yeah.
work with that guy.
Yes. Yes.
And I respect that. I respect somebody who wants to, yeah, he's still doing action. He's still
Yeah.
Arnold. He's still doing that stuff. But he wants to keep working with different creative people.
Yeah. Yeah. And that movie has a lot of excellent actors in it and like some
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
hardcore, legendary, maybe not super popular, but like regular working actors over many years who are
Yes.
just excellent at what they do. Just
Yeah.
excellent. Yeah.
One of the things I was going to bring up with it being a one-off is how well it does world building.
Yes. Yes.
Like, it's a movie that just brings you into its concept right away.
Yeah.
It doesn't need, I mean, there is exposition, don't get me wrong. There's a few scenes that are just like, okay, here's the plot. When he opens the briefcase and he's seeing the message from himself, obviously that's a huge exposition dump, and everything like that. However, and that was understandable because otherwise why would he go to Mars? He needed a reason to go to Mars, and the idea of he leaves a message for himself is not a bad idea. It's a great idea. But I just appreciate that movie, that it just throws you into it.
It does. Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's no like narration to begin with. There's no, you know what I mean? There's just like, okay, he's in bed with, what's her name?
Oh, she was excellent too. Gosh, legendary. Basic Instinct. Not Basic.
Yeah.
Instinct. Yeah, Basic Instinct.
Yeah.
Sharon Stone.
Why am I blanking on her? Yeah, Sharon Stone.
Sharon Stone was excellent in that.
She's a good villain in that.
She's a great villain. Like see a lot of great, interesting actors who did a lot of like really interesting roles that I thought, you know, like they'd all fit, and like just I love the technology. Like I remember that time I was like, wow, they're doing like, she's getting a tennis lesson through a hologram. You know, like I thought that was so crazy, and that's actually a reality right now. It's just too
Nintendo
expensive.
Wii before Nintendo Wii.
Right. I thought that was incredible, and like she did a good job of portraying this sexiness, but this villainous nature at the same time,
Yeah, and like you didn't want her to be the villain because she was so sexy at the beginning.
Yeah, it's like, wow, she's
but then
pretty
when
hot.
they have their first when they have their first fight and Arnold's like throwing her across the kitchen and stuff like that, you're like, wow, they're just like one of the things that I noticed when I went back and watched the Bond films is that the Sean Connery fight scenes, there aren't that many. You know what I mean? There's like a lot of quietness in a lot of the old Bond films. There's a lot, but when the fight scenes come, a lot of them are pretty vicious. Like they really go for it.
They do,
and I appreciate that, even though maybe the choreography isn't very sophisticated and everything like that, but I appreciate that it's just kind of a real brawl.
It is.
And I feel like they did a really good job with that with the first when he fights Sharon Stone in the apartment. It's a pretty vicious thing. She grabs the knife and she's really coming at him. It's not just like it's not just like he's like finds out and he punches her once and she's down. It's like no, she's coming at you and she's ferocious.
She is ferocious.
She is scary.
It is. It's actually it's just so well done. And then I think when they get to Mars, and I guess there's something about space for me. I always love about space. And the whole concept of Mars. And then I started thinking as I was like I had watched it not that long ago again, and I was like, I wonder what Mars would actually be like. Like they have it like kind of this Detroit looking place. It was kind
Yeah.
of like,
Yeah.
but like, how would you set up society on a different planet? And would it just be a mimic of Earth where the powerful people ended up controlling everything? And it almost felt like they had enslaved the aliens of that planet. Humans came in and
Yeah.
just were like, whatever, there's nothing sacred about this. They have resources. We ain't going to let these people have it type of thing,
It's really extraterrestrial uh oh boy, what's the word I'm trying to think of? The expansion of like the British Empire and things like that.
Yeah. It's like
Gosh,
colonization.
yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Colonialization of Mars.
Yeah.
And so they did, and once again, it's like, yeah, there's exposition, yeah, but you find out about most of this through his adventures of
Yeah.
exploring and things like that, and coming into contact with the resistance, the
Right.
underground
There's always a
resistance and these
resistance.
kinds of things. Exactly.
Like,
Yeah. I thought that was pretty funny. That's a kind of like a Running Man.
yeah.
There's
Oh,
like
another great movie.
the
Another great
resistance.
movie.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
like,
yeah. And there's always a pretty girl who's in the
yeah,
resistance,
that's
and
right. Always. You got to have the sex appeal, Simon.
yeah. And then
Another
we have
one
to have the
off,
girl
Running Man.
fight. The girl
Another run
fight.
off. The girl fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Running Man feels like if it had been originally made today, it would definitely be made to be like a series or a
Yeah.
franchise or
It would
something
be a
like that,
franchise. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it doesn't need to be like because there's a definite end to it. It's a definite
Yes.
end. Killian gets destroyed by his own device into the into the thing.
Yeah.
It's great, man. It's so good. Oh, Kadri Cola.
Yes, exactly. And once again, world building, like
Yep.
a lot of the guys that Arnold fights in that movie are not around very long. They have
No.
very small screen time,
Right.
but you feel it's kind of like watching pro wrestling,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you feel like these characters are so well established in just a couple of minutes.
That's right.
And by the time that Arnold kills them, you feel like those were like big time villains. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Even though
Yeah.
they were only there for a minute.
How do they do
So
that? What's the magic in that, you think? Like, how do you build a world very quickly and make people feel like it's like believable or like, wow, that you pulled me in. I totally am into Buzzsaw. Like
yeah, I feel like it's not insulting the intelligence of your audience. It is just, instead of explaining everything in ridiculous ways, like doing the text before the movie starts or doing the narration before the movie starts, just put us in there, act like we already live there. You know what I mean? Just like, we'll figure it out as we go along. And what's the best movie going experience? It's when you're able to relate to the main character. And how do you relate to the main character? It's by making discoveries along the way with them.
Yeah.
Instead of knowing more than they know.
Interesting.
And I think that's an important part of filmmaking. If the audience knows too much more than the protagonist knows, then the filmmakers haven't done their job. I feel like, you know what I mean? But when we discover things along with the protagonist, then we're like, whoa, amazing. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, they were the villain the whole time, or whatever, whatever the case may be. But I think a lot of filmmakers and producers and things like that, they don't have that kind of faith in their audience. So they're like, well, we just got to say it.
Got to tell them, these idiots.
I mean, I was actually just talking with my my sister here, Kate, that we were talking about. I was saying how annoyed I am when you're watching a movie and something happens, and then they feel like they need to explain what just happened. Does that make
Yeah, I know it
you know what
makes
I'm
sense.
saying?
Yeah, it's not
And
necessary.
I'm just like, oh my gosh, please stop telling me. Or somebody gives a quick list of what they need to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Here's
Yeah.
the bullet points of what we need to do. I already know.
Yeah.
I've been watching the movie. I already know what you need to do. And even if I didn't, just show me.
Just
Just show
show
me
me.
what you need to do.
Yeah.
Surprise me. I would love to be surprised in a movie. I
Yeah.
love being surprised in a
Me
movie.
too, actually. Yeah.
That's one of the things that what's so great about Jackie Chan movies. We'll keep going back to Jackie Chan
Yeah,
all
I
the
know,
time
right?
because the choreography is so surprising sometimes. You know what I mean? You're just
Yeah.
like, what the heck? He just jumped through the ladder.
He just jumped
I
through
mean,
it.
nobody else thinks about jumping through the ladder.
It's
You know what I
true.
mean? And then all of a sudden he does it. And it's so surprising. It knocks your socks off. You're like, holy
Right.
cow! He just instead of just grabbing the ladder, he jumps through it.
Yeah. It's
You
true.
know?
It's true. I feel like we're just not getting these type of movies that much because I think there's just this reliance on here's the concept and there's going to be 5 of these or there's going to be 4 of these. Even like a movie like a John Wick is fine with just one. It's like good with one John Wick. That's like a 90s
Yeah.
movie. Boom, boom,
Yeah.
so revenge thing, it's
They killed
done.
my dog.
You kill my dog, I
Yeah.
got revenge. Instead, they just make it a franchise,
Yeah.
It's like, how about we? It almost seems harder to jump from movie to movie and try to create something great versus just existing. And maybe for the actors, it's great because they have longer term security monetarily.
Yeah.
I guess for them, they
I think a
probably
lot of
like,
actors feel like they get to expand the character.
yeah,
Oh, I get to keep exploring this character.
right. But what if it's a dumb character? It's
Yeah.
like,
Well, and I actually have enjoyed mostly the John Wick movies. I enjoyed the first
yeah,
one.
I
And,
enjoy them. I just do they need to be so
but to
many?
your but
Like,
to your point, have we really learned that much more about the character John Wick in
no,
these movies?
no,
Have we seen a lot of character growth? Have we seen him
no.
evolve as a person?
This is the Simon area, big time. Where's
You
the
know?
talking? What is he say?
Well, I mean, if there are certain things that a franchise like Marvel has done right with some of its characters, not all, and I'm specifically thinking of Captain America and Iron
Yeah,
Man, they have, I mean, over, I don't know, each of them are in like 7 or 8 movies,
yeah,
but over that time, they have real character arcs.
they
They go
do.
through immense change.
They do.
And so when I can see that, I can almost buy into a franchise. But if I just see the same character doing the same things over and over again,
Uh,
I'm just right there with you. It's like, well, this movie seemed completely unnecessary. That is when we talk about the Terminator movies.
yeah.
How many times can you go back in time to save the future? Like we've done it twice.
Yeah.
Leave it alone. And they did it brilliantly with the T2.
Oh,
Where Arnold is now the protector. He's the good guy now.
what a great
He
turn in
goes,
the movie. That was amazing.
yeah. But we've done that for Arnold to continue to keep coming back as the protective Terminator. Been there, done that,
Yes.
seen it, don't need it again.
Yeah. Unnecessary and not that
Yeah.
good. I love that.
If he like maybe if he would come back as a neutral Terminator, I don't give a shit.
I want him to be like the pacifist Terminator.
Like, yeah, everybody around him is wanting to like save the future. He's like, don't care.
Like,
he's the manator.
He's the man. He's like, just it's irrelevant. The future's irrelevant to him.
Yeah, he's like, I'm a robot, don't care.
I think that what is it about that franchise? Like, I think it matches because we're talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like, what is it about that franchise that it keeps striving to do something with it? Like, what's the overarching, like, what are they trying to accomplish, do you think?
Well, I think they're trying to make lots of money.
Yeah. Well, yes.
So I mean, it's kind of like Transformers.
Yeah.
And I hate to make that comparison
Uh,
because the movies are such trash. I hate to compare
they're
anything to
really
that,
bad,
you
actually.
know. But why on earth would there be like, I don't know, 8 Transformers movies? How many are there? I have no
I
idea.
don't know.
I saw the first one and I thought, well, that was crap.
Simon,
You know, and so I'm never gonna watch another one.
uh,
But they've made so many, and but it's all money. It's like people will
yeah,
keep going because Arnold is in it and it says Terminator in it. So
yeah.
I think people have a morbid curiosity about it. And I
Hmm,
think there's a lot of people who go to these movies that genuinely don't like these movies, but they
hmm.
still go.
Huh.
Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense. Yeah.
I mean, how in the world do those Transformers movies make that much money?
I mean, people they make a lot of money,
They
actually.
make a ton
Like a
of
lot.
money,
Yeah.
but I mean, have you ever met a Transformers movie fan? I've met
No.
people who are fans of the old cartoon and
Yeah.
things
Oh,
like
me
that.
too. Yeah.
Yeah. But have you met somebody who's been like, Shia LaBeouf's greatest film role was Transformers?
No. Hey,
You
Mark
know,
Wahlberg,
I
good job
mean,
in Transformers.
yeah, nobody,
Yeah.
nobody, maybe an 8-year old, but I don't even think 8-year old kids like it.
Yeah. Um, I'm interested in these type of movies if they're done on a completely different scale. For instance, like I would be very interested in a Transformers movie that was very serious. Like, and it would took
Yes.
place on Cybertron, not on Earth. And it explored
Get rid of the
Transformers
humans.
culture. Like there's not a lot of humans in it. There are almost no humans. And it just explores
Yeah.
the AI aspect of it. Like, how does the creationism of these artificially intelligent robots, the sentience, the war, between these factors. Like, I don't know. I feel like
Yep.
a serious version of that would be incredible, like,
I could really get on board with
but it
that.
wouldn't be
I
for
think,
kids. And that's the problem is they bank
yeah,
on like kids and teenagers and people who are just mindless moviegoers to go, oh, I just want to see some blow up stuff. It's like,
yeah.
and
You know,
CGI.
that was that was the argument with the Star Wars movies that
Yeah.
they're made for kids and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And I was like, okay, I get it, because I loved the Star Wars movies when I was a kid. But go back and watch Empire Strikes Back. Is that a kids movie to
Yeah,
you?
exactly.
All
Exactly.
right, go just watch the first couple of minutes of, because you definitely don't want to watch the whole movie of the Phantom Menace, and you're just like, and it's talking about freaking trade routes.
Yes, exactly.
And I mean, does that strike you as a children's movie? Like, the plot of these movies, they are not going to engross children. Kids like the lightsabers and
Yeah.
the Force and stuff, but stop telling me these movies are made for kids and just make movies for adults. Because guess what? My
No,
favorite movies growing up were the movies that I watched with adults.
that's
They
a
were
good
made for
point.
adults.
They were made for adults. That's exactly
They were
right.
made for adults. They weren't made for kids.
I never liked kids' movies. I always liked adult movies when I was
Yeah.
growing up. Yeah.
I
That's
just showed my
interesting.
children Stand By Me,
Oh man, love that movie.
a movie about kids, but made for
Made
adults.
for adults. That's exactly
But
right.
when a kid watches that, my kids loved it. And I loved it when I was a kid,
Yeah.
because once again, it's a movie about kids made for adult sensibilities. So
Yeah.
dealing with some, and told in a way that isn't insulting the audience, isn't it's not telling the story from the viewpoint that we need a 6-year-old to understand it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we're, and we can have real raw emotion and
Yeah.
things like that within it. And um so anyway, we I think that's the secret. That's to movies that go from okay
Yeah.
to really great. When you make a movie for adults and then you let a kid watch it because you
Yeah.
assume that your kid isn't an idiot.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my biggest assumption in life, that my kids are not idiots.
Yeah.
And because I feel like because I've assumed that, I've been able to have conversations with them about really big ideas.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And I can show them movies that have really big ideas in them. Years ago, we watched, is it called Intergalactic? What's it called? It's the one,
Interstellar.
Interstellar.
Yeah.
That's what it's called.
I love that movie, actually, man.
It's already a long movie. And then we kept pausing the movie to talk about the ideas
Deep,
as we
man.
watched it.
A lot of deep ideas in there, man.
And the kids were just really, I mean, it took us like 4.5 hours probably to get through the movie because we kept pausing it and talking, and then we'd go back and keep watching. But the kids were all in the entire time.
Isn't that great?
Yeah. And it just speaks to how kids want to think about big things. Kids are so innately curious. They want to know about big ideas.
Yeah.
There's nothing a child wants more than to get inside their parents' mind.
You're right. You went deep there, man. You went so deep. My daughter and I watch a lot of movies together, and it's funny the conversations we have about that. The movies. You're right. We watch movies that were for adults all the time.
Yeah.
I think the kids craves that. It doesn't mean that my daughter doesn't like watching kiddie stuff, but like she talks about serious stuff when we watch movies and stuff. And she's really into that, you know,
because as a kid, you know, you don't really tell the difference between Transformers cartoon versus like a movie like Stand By Me.
Yeah.
Both of them are dealing with emotions. Both of them are dealing with, you know, conflict. Both of them are dealing with characters that you care about. So as a child, you internalize these things, I think, the same way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but if you expose a child to the big ideas of more serious movies, things that are made for a more mature brain, they take that with them and they watch the kids stuff.
Right.
And now the kids stuff means more to them. It's, you know, but if you only expose them to the kids stuff, I feel like you've really done your child a disservice developmentally.
Yeah, I agree, man. You took it a different place, man. You got on this kids. You really went there. You went deeper than I thought. Way deeper than I thought this was going, man. I had a couple aha moments. I was like, yeah, that's true. We watched adult movies when we were kids.
I mean, and so many of the movies that I loved as a kid were like the forbidden movies, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, I remember watching Commando at, you know, speaking of Commando,
movie,
at a friend's house, and it was like, oh, my parents wouldn't let me watch that. You know,
such a great movie.
My friend and I are watching this, and I'm just like, this is the greatest. You know, because I wasn't allowed to watch it. It's too violent.
It's so funny. My dad let me watch any violent, no matter how violent the movie was, all the time. I watched so many violent movies growing up. It was incredible.
I feel like there were times when my father and I were just by ourselves, and he was going to watch something that he normally wouldn't let us watch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you have that father-son bonding time over like the forbidden movie. You know what I mean? And it's always some action, you know, some guy movie, you know.
Ripping the spine out or something. It's like, oh my gosh. Just like, listen, my dad is still like deeply into sci-fi. And I think he really invested that into me growing up. So like I remember watching Aliens with my dad growing up. I remember thinking, this is scary. This could be really scary, you know, but it's like an alien horror film in space. It's so scary. But then I was like, man, I really appreciate how that was done and the horror with that. And then they start cocking it up with all the sequels and stuff. I mean, like Aliens 3 is one of the worst movies of all time. It's pretty bad, man. It's like,
That's the prison one.
yeah, it's so bad. I think it's really bad, actually. I was just like,
I actually have a lot of forgiveness for that one. And I
really?
actually, the one I hate the most is the one I think that comes after that.
Oh, that's
Is
bad
it?
too. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really
I
bad.
actually have a lot of forgiveness in my heart for Aliens 3 because I feel like they were trying so many things and they were creating, once again, that world building aspect.
Yeah, yeah.
Like they had, it's not an Aliens movie. That's the problem with it.
That's the
You know what I
problem.
mean?
Yeah, it's not an aliens movie.
So in some of those movies, I feel like, and I don't know this, I just, but it gives off the feel like this was written not as an alien movie, but they shoehorned the alien into it. And
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
well, we could have, Ripley be in this movie,
Yeah,
and we just,
why not?
yeah.
Shave her head and see
So
what it's like.
exactly, yeah. But so much of that movie works for me, not as it's like a great movie, but more like it's
Yeah.
a great try. It's
Mm,
like I see what you were really going for
I
here. And
see what you're saying.
it was very ambitious in the world it created in
Yeah.
this isolated,
The
prison in
isolated. Yeah.
space and
Yeah.
things like that. And I really appreciate that. And if you just wouldn't have made it part of the Alien franchise and you
Right.
just would have given it its own thing.
I was expecting something else. That's what I just was. You put me in this
Yeah.
arc and then you change it on me. Like I'm
Yeah.
okay with the change, but it was like, what's happening here? Like, and then the one after that was putrid,
Yeah.
completely putrid.
Ripley's story really should have, it was well enough alone after the
It was
second
well
one,
enough alone. Yeah.
and then I actually enjoy the prequels that they've made recently. I'm
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
saying they're perfect movies or anything like that, but I think they've been really, I think they're really well done actually.
Yeah.
And I've gone into them with so little expectation. I think that is also the thing. Because I knew they were prequels, I wasn't expecting them to be
Yeah.
Alien, or
Right.
Aliens. And so once again, I kind of went into those movies with just a lot of forgiveness and be like, okay,
Yeah.
you guys are creating this mythology, and I really
Yeah.
like I really like the android villain in it. I think
Yeah.
he's fantastic.
What's this fascination with androids we have? And like, even with Arnold, like a lot of his films, like have that kind of angle. And it's almost like we're like trying to anthropomorphize machines
Yeah,
all the time.
all the time. Trying to I mean, it's one of the cheesiest moments in all film, but it just works when Arnold is being lowered into the into the
Right.
into
Yeah.
I know now why humans cry, but it is something I can never do. And then he gives a freaking thumbs up
Thumbs up.
as he goes
It's
in. I'm
emotional,
just like,
Simon. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's so stupid. If you just tell somebody about that scene, it is so stupid. You can't just watch that scene. You can't just talk about that scene.
No,
You
no.
have to have watched the entire movie in order to get
Right.
there. And now you're like, okay,
I get it.
I'm with you now. I'm with you now.
Yeah. The emotion.
But I think I, I think part of it is exploring humanity from a completely alien perspective. So what could be more alien than something that doesn't possess human emotion?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that was one of the more interesting things of this, what was it called? Covenant.
Oh, Alien Covenant. Yeah.
Yeah. When they find the the other android and he's been there
Yeah.
for a long time and he's kind of gone crazy.
Right.
But how does an android go crazy? It's like something's wrong with the circuitry, something's wrong
Yeah.
with, something like that. And they just kind of talk about that. And the way the other android realizes that something's wrong is that he misquotes.
Yeah.
And, and he's like, well, if you can't even get a quote right, there's something wrong with your programming.
Right.
And I just thought that was really interesting because that's completely unhuman. We misquote and do things all the time because our brains aren't perfect like that.
Yeah.
They don't just recall zeros and ones.
Right.
So anyway, I think that's part of our fascination with it is that there's something very alien about robotics in which they
Yeah.
can't feel the way we feel. If there's something imperfect with the computer, then there's something really wrong with it. But human imperfection is expected.
It's expected. Yeah. It's so interesting. I just so many movies are trying to understand kind of the sentience of AI and like our relationship to it. And I think a lot of Arnold movies were really digging into that,
Yeah.
trying to understand what is this relationship like. Okay, Skynet's a great example. Like Skynet comes online and it becomes self-aware, and then the first thing it's going to do is kill all humans. Like
It decides humans are the problem.
is that like, yeah, like but think about it, like maybe humans are the problem. You know, like
Yeah.
it deduced very quickly these biological meat bags are the problem. Like,
Well, and that goes back to Total Recall. What happens to Mars? Humans get there and discover this ancient alien
yeah,
technology. And what's the first thing that happens? Capitalism, right?
Capitalism.
Imperialism, colonialism.
Colonialism.
That's what happens, you know. It's
Yeah.
like the human greed takes the forefront, and
Yeah.
humans are the problem. They are the problem. I mean, that sounds
Right.
very cynical. Humans are also the solution.
That's true.
And I think going back to the Terminator movies, it speaks to that. Humans are the problem, but they're also the solution.
Right.
Um, and maybe, gosh, my mind just went really dark, where it was just like, okay, I guess that's what Hitler was going for, right?
Wow, you went real
The,
dark.
the final solution, right?
Right.
Where it's like, okay, certain humans are the problem.
Right.
Isn't
Yeah.
that kind of Skynet's thing?
Yeah.
I mean, Skynet kind of, and it's like humans are the problem. Well, or I guess maybe not Skynet, but maybe that's what most of us are thinking, and we don't want to admit it to ourselves. There we go. There, you know, that certain humans are the problem. Oh, Republicans are the problem. Oh, Democrats are the problem. Oh, well, if we just get rid of them, everything's going to be fine.
Wow.
Sounds
This
a lot
one
like
deep.
Hitler, doesn't it?
This one real deep, man. That's the thing about movies. I've always loved about movies is there's something deeper with it. You know, it's like if we talk about, oh, we're going to establish a lunar base, and you start thinking to yourself, well, what would that be like? And I feel like a lot of movie makers, they go dark with it, man. It's never good. It's like, oh, capitalism, greed, imperialism. It's never like, oh, everybody's going to be good to each other. That's not even on the table in a movie. In most movies, it's like, oh no, this future does not exist, you know?
So there is a future that does exist like that, and it's called Star Trek.
Right.
Star Trek, Earth, future, we do away, but what happens? Do away with money.
Right. Exactly.
You have replicator machines. Now there's no reason to hoard resources because you can replicate anything.
Right.
This is utopia. It's when you're not competitive for things. Things are in abundance.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But the moment that there's a scarcity of anything, human greed takes over.
Right.
And even when humans see that they can create a scarcity, I mean, look at the way gas prices have gone up and then back down again. You know, it's like there was no reason for gas prices to go up. I guarantee you. There was zero reason for it. But the gas and oil companies use the war in Ukraine as an excuse to say there might be a scarcity, so we're going to jack up the prices. Oh, there isn't one actually? Oh, okay. Well, I guess we can just lower the prices back down.
Yeah, I guess so.
But we won't lower them down all the way because now we've subjected you to super high prices. So now paying $3.65 at the gallon sounds like a real treat.
Sounds like a great deal.
After you've been paying $5.65, you know?
Yeah. I think I'm like, I'm an optimistic person, but I kind of side with movies a lot on this. Like, I'm not sure down, hundreds of thousands of years down the line that we're creating this galactic federation that is harmonious and all these things. It's just humans just like are insects, man. They just come and they just crawl over things. And like, we're going to go to another planet and be like, it's going to be amazing. Oh, we're
Yeah.
not going to have greed. We're not going to have envy. I'm like, no. I'm like, no, who's going to start the planet?
Yeah.
Who's going to start the thing? It's going to be a very elite people who are going to start the whole society, probably. It's not going to be like
It's
regular
either
people
elite.
like, yo,
Yeah.
man. Yeah.
It's either elite people or it's a penal colony.
Yeah, right.
There's no in between.
There's no in
There's no
between.
just like
It's not
average
like middle
Joe.
class starting Mars. I mean, it's
No,
going to be like scientists, wealthy people. I mean, it's not going to be.
Yeah. And then the
just
slave labor.
It's not going to be an equitable thing. How could it be? I mean, even getting there requires so many resources that very few people have. I mean, like,
equity is an interesting thing because what does it really mean?
yeah.
Does it mean that everybody has the same things, or does it mean that
Right.
everybody has access to the same things?
Yeah.
And well, to your point, I don't think we'll ever live in a world where there's economic equality, where there
No.
isn't rich and poor,
Yeah.
and everything in between. The best we can do is try to make it so there's not such a disparity
Right.
between rich
Right.
and poor. That's the best we
Right.
can do.
I agree.
And
It's just
make
like
sure that
colonizing planets is like, it just feels like it'd be a lot of the same, honestly.
yeah,
It just feels like it would be. Maybe I'm wrong. It just feels like it would be.
well, I mean, just take Earth and any nation
Yeah.
as an example. I mean, for heaven's sakes, you don't have to go to another planet. Just go to a different continent and see how Europeans have treated continents, or not even just Europeans, but also, I mean, the Mongol Empire. Anybody who's gone around conquering and saying we want all of this.
Yeah.
And
all of it. Not a little bit, all of it. Like,
there's a Tolstoy short story. The title gives it away, and that's one of the problems I have with Leo Tolstoy.
Yeah.
And but it's just called something like "How much land is enough land" or something like that, And so from the get-go, you've already learned the moral. You know what I mean? But the story is about they are giving away land, and it's as much land as you can walk across in a day during a time period, from like sun up to sundown or something like that. Well, the main protagonist, he doesn't need so much land, but because he's like, well, I have this whole day or something like that, he's like, I'm gonna walk as far as I possibly can, and by the end he actually dies of exhaustion.
Yeah.
So this is our great moral, that and we see that with empires. It's a great analog to any kind of colonialization empire. You get too greedy, you overextend yourself, and then your empire collapses and it dies. And so what is it about us that we're just not satisfied with what is a reasonable amount? Why do we feel like, oh, well, if I can get this, well, I've got to get this?
Yeah, exactly.
The all-you-can-eat buffet mentality.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't need all this food. Calorically, it's not even good for me.
Yeah. I'll take
it. But I paid for the all-you-can-eat, so I'm going to keep going back. The food isn't even good. It's a buffet.
Yeah.
When's the last time we went to a buffet and it was good?
I don't know.
But I'm going to keep going back because it's all you can eat.
It's all you can eat. I mean, it's all you can eat.
That's colonialization in a nutshell.
In a nutshell, it's a buffet.
It's
Simon's buffet.
Take as much as you can.
Right. And that's what I think with Total Recall is basically like these problems on Earth exist on Mars too. And they probably would exist on any planet, in any wormhole you went through to another. It would just exist. Like to think it. And I think that's why a lot of sci-fi is very dystopic. Is because you see human nature and you see the past and you go, well, what would give me a reason to think it would be utopia? And I'm not seeing that, maybe it'd be, and you always see also, I notice is like almost that societies that exist way in the future almost are very medieval like too in a lot of movies. It's like there's technology and then people lose it, or they go back to being hunter-gatherers, or it's like super high end, It's like It's crazy. It's like the fall of civilization, that type of thing is or you get a lot of movies now that really start looking at disease, pandemic, and things. Like the crazy thing about the pandemic is if you actually were an avid movie watcher, there's like 8 million pandemic movies before we had our own. Like, and they're crazy. They're crazy pandemic. Like, and if you watch any documentary from 2002, it says there will be a pandemic. And within the next, it's crazy actually.
Yeah.
So it's just like a lot of dystopic society and living, like that movie filmmakers do. I don't think that they're that off though, honestly,
No, it's interesting. We also talked about how they never seem to get it right when we were talking about Demolition Man.
Yeah.
They never quite get it right.
Never there.
But the ideas are there. The basic ideas of that we will overextend ourselves as a species, and there will be a culling, whether it's a pandemic, whether it's the machines becoming sentient.
Right.
There will be a culling of humanity.
Interstellar, where the planet, like the crops, you can't grow crops. Like that actually was scary to me because I don't think we think about that type of scarcity. Like, no, food, like you can't grow food.
But we've already had it. We had the Dust Bowls of the, and the Great Depression and things like that. And we already know the dangers of over farming and poor farming practices and stuff. But for the most part, we just ignore it.
We just do, man.
We just ignore it. And then when we over farm certain products like corn.
Right.
It's like,
of course,
because the money crops. And then that drives up the prices of the things that are actually nutritious to us,
right?
Because since we're putting corn in everything, every processed food has some kind of corn in it.
Yes. And
now the price of an apple goes way up because there's not enough money to be made in apples. But yeah, man, I mean, we've gone really dark. We've decided that humanity is the problem. We've decided that there's going to be a culling. We've decided that we're already experiencing it with pandemics. We got monkeypox coming up.
I know, man. It's the greatest hits.
It's beginning to feel like it's just going to be an ongoing thing from here on out. But
a lot of bad movies.
It won't be, but maybe, but
more bad movies than ever, in my opinion. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like that's a big sign of the apocalypse. A lot of bad movie filmmaking. Like
I was thinking about that the other day about how many studios there are because there's so many streaming services now and everybody's making their original content. And it feels like we should be in the golden age of creation, content creation, whether, no matter what content you're talking about, whether it's film, music, whatever it is.
Yeah.
We should be in the golden age because there's so much access to it. There's so many people working in it. There's so much opportunity for it. But it just goes back to what we were talking about. We're in that overextending ourselves.
Overextending. Yeah. And I actually think too, Simon, that like in any industry, you could have a ton of people in it, but there's very few people that are just all world in it, that are just, and I feel like that with movies. There's some movie, so for me, like Christopher Nolan is up there. He's up there in movie making. Something about his movies just drive me to them. And
whether you enjoy his movies or not, when you go to see a Christopher Nolan movie, you know how much thought, care, and work went into making the very best movie that Christopher Nolan could possibly make.
Yes.
Whether you enjoy that or not is beside the point, because you can't. Personal taste is one thing, quality is another.
Agreed. Man, you're hitting gems today. There's a lot of Simon gems, and you knew it too. You knew it. You gave the stared out afterwards. Personal taste one thing, quality is another. You picking up what I'm putting down here? Like, right? I mean, to make a movie like Inception, there's a lot of thought in that.
There's got to be a lot of people who don't even like, and who just think this is a terrible movie. I was like, I don't like this. I want to go watch Transformers.
I don't want to have to think too much.
Yeah,
Too much
yeah,
talking.
yeah. I mean, as a creator, that's some of the best feedback I've ever received, and I can't ever receive, is that somebody who doesn't like my music
Yeah.
recognizes how much thought, work, and creativity has gone into it. It's like,
Yeah.
you know what, this isn't my thing, but I appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah. Wow.
That's kind of what I was saying about the Aliens 3. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I can't defend that as being a good movie,
Yeah.
but I can defend it on the idea that that director, the people making the movie were extremely ambitious in what they attempted.
Yeah. Man, you made me think about, actually, I'm gonna go back and watch it again because of you. I haven't watched it in a long time, but I didn't think about it from that angle. And I
They created
appreciate
a
that.
whole culture,
Yeah.
there. It's like a whole religious cult,
That's
prison
true.
system culture. And
Never
that's the
watched
kind of
that.
stuff that I can just really appreciate, where it's like, okay, they didn't just say, oh, it's a prison in space,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
No, it's like they actually thought about what would happen if you have a prison with not very many inmates there,
Right. Right. Yeah. It's
you
quiet
know,
almost. Yeah.
and it's so isolated, and there are no weapons or anything like
Yeah.
that, you know what I mean? And so what would happen is like, yeah, they would kind of probably become cultish.
Yeah.
I mean, that's once again, that's one of
Man.
those human things that we kind of do, right?
Yes. Yes.
We oftentimes create cults and reasons to feel like we belong.
Oh man, I don't know if you've seen this movie Anayara.
I
Simon,
don't think so.
this is your movie, man. I
Yeah.
watched this movie randomly, like maybe 2 years ago. It's like a Swedish film, and it's all about like this this commercial spaceship that has restaurants on and all this stuff, and it travels back and forth between Mars, and it goes off course. And it's all about what
Mm.
happens when you know you're not going to get rescued and you're living in space, and the
Oh
whole
boy.
culture and society. I'm not gonna. That's it. I'm gonna say. I'm
That
telling you, this is a
that sounds
movie that
great.
you and I should talk about. Like it is.
Okay.
It is so. There's so many themes and things of like what would happen, and they do a good job of like fast forwarding to different parts of the future and how society has changed on this ship as it just
Interesting. See,
hurtles through
that's
space.
cool. That's
Yeah.
cool. I
Yeah.
like that. I mean, that is a microcosm for Earth, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, we're just stuck on this planet.
Yeah.
We're not going anywhere. I mean, you can believe all you want in Jesus and things like that. And
Yeah.
I don't mean to disparage anybody who believes in those things, but
Yeah.
nobody's coming to rescue you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can get baptized, you can do all that stuff. But at the end of the day, it's us here and we have
Yeah.
to make the best of it.
Yeah. I
You
mean,
know
you're
what I
just on.
mean?
What did you? You're in LA and you're on fire, man. It's like, you're like, seriously. You know what the craziest thing about, and you said about the whole Jesus thing? And funny, anybody's listening to this, and I know you're like, you believe like me. And you went from a point of view that was almost felt opposite of that, which was
You
like
know,
crazy. You turned it on its head.
I
Like,
mean,
who are you?
it probably comes from I had a conversation yesterday with a friend, and we were talking about empowerment and how
Yeah.
oftentimes religion depowers the human soul,
Mm,
because there's so much of,
mm.
I'm gonna give it, I give up myself
Yeah.
to this unseen higher power.
Yeah.
That can have a lot of beauty to it. I'm not
Of
trying to
course.
take away from that, but there's also a part of it where it says, Jesus, take the wheel. Oh, I just have to give this up to Jesus. I
Yeah.
just have to, this and that. But you think about this from God and Jesus's perspective, if you're Christian or
Yeah.
whatever God that you believe in, think about it from their perspective. And if you believe that we are the children of such God, what does that God really hope for us?
Yeah.
And I think about it from my perspective as a father. What's my hope for my children? What's my hope
Yeah.
in my role as a father with my children? My hope is that I will empower them so that they don't need me anymore.
Yeah.
My hope is that I will teach them how to think to the extent that my wisdom becomes unwisdom to them, because they are elevated beyond me now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if your God doesn't want that for you, you might be worshiping the wrong God.
Yeah.
That's
Wow.
my hot take. That's my
Wow.
hot
You're
take.
like a
So
Jedi master today, man. I'm telling you, man. This is like, and you're feeling it. I feel it, man. You're
yeah,
really, you like went to
charged.
another level,
I'm
man.
charged. I'm electric.
You charged. You went to man. I got to tell you, man. This is like, I'm very impressed. I always impressed by you, Simon. But you're speaking some serious lingo. You're dropping some serious gems today, man.
I got the
Wow.
truth bombs.
A lot of
I'm
stuff for
armed
me
and
to think
ready.
about. I got to think about a lot of this. I really do.
I love it. I mean, that's the best thing that we take from these conversations.
Yeah.
The best thing that we take from these conversations isn't, oh, was that movie any good? No, that's not what we get from these conversations. What we get from these conversations is in-depth analysis of our humanity.
Yes. Wow. I mean, all right, we got to be done. I got to think about this. I got to have some deep reflection about several things. I got to tell you, man, again, I know people listen to this. I say that I feel like I say this at the end of every episode. I just love having these discussions every couple weeks.
Me too.
Man.
Me too.
It's so deep.
It's just, I think this is what most people crave, but we don't set aside the time to do it.
Yes. And
But
we just use movies as the cover.
Yeah. But we've scheduled this time. We make an excuse that we're going to talk about something, but we don't really talk. I mean, we do, but we don't, but we just use it as an excuse to talk about the bigger things.
Yeah.
And I think that's what most people want, but maybe they don't know they want it, or maybe they just haven't scheduled the time to do it.
Got to schedule the time. I honestly, seriously, I think you got to watch that movie NIR. Maybe it sucks to you, but I think like
I'm on it.
We talk about it next time. I'm going to watch it again. It's just, it blew my mind.
What's it on?
It's on Hulu.
Okay.
I hate subtitle movies. I really do. But I hung in through it big time. I was like, wow, this is crazy. Like this is, and it was just thinking. I was like, man, is that what would happen? Like, would I become like that? Would I become like that? So I'm curious what you would think about that.
That's
iPhone
the
Simon
question.
iPhone Simon is a different Simon.
It's truth bomb Simon.
I got bigger expectations for you now.
All right, I'm gonna keep bringing it. I'm gonna go full steam ahead.
Wow, it's full steampunk Simon.
Oh man.
Well, thank you so much, my friend, man.
2 weeks from now, we'll see. We'll talk about that next movie.
You got it, man. All right. Thanks.
All right. Talk to you soon.
All right.